I don't usually like to make videos on like budget decks unless there's a particular reason for it, so I wasn't planning to, but just there's so many missions and like the chests that require to win ranked matches, and not everyone has access to a meta deck that can compete with like the fully built decks out there. I thought I would show off a budget deck that I personally feel is the best budget deck. I mean, you're free to disagree with me, of course, it's not like 100% thing, but personally I feel that this is probably the best budget deck out there. So it's the one I'm making a video on, so this is going to be Roach Forest. There are some caveats to this, of course, but we will talk about that when we look at the deck list. So let's look at the deck list we're playing for today first. So this is the list we are playing today. As you can see, we are running 0 legendaries, which is, I guess, what makes this a budget deck. It's worth noting though, we do run a playset of every gold for this class, so that might still cost a little bit, probably not as much as like 3 legendaries, but you know, still a bit of an investment unless you already have some of these cards. The reason why I'm not running Arya in the list at 1 copy, even though if you picked the Arya deck you can get her at 1 copy, is because I did not pick that deck, so I did not have her when I prepared this list. I pulled her now, but when I was playing the games I didn't have her, so she's not in the deck. So yeah, this, for how cheap this deck is at running not a single legendary, it's actually quite functional. I mean, I've been playing it at like I managed to climb the diamond with this deck without any legendary, so it's not bad, I guess. I mean, my rank isn't that high, it's only like B3 or something, so take it with a grain of salt, but you know, it's whatever. Anyway, you can see there are some non-standard, most of these are just standard, the quote-unquote non-standard picks I guess I should talk about. A Baby Carbuncle is an alternative way to bounce your Roach. You can super evolve it to play the Roach again. It's basically a 2-cost Roach is what it is, and then you can ping 1 more damage as well. So yeah, it's a decent card to run while you're trying to fill up your deck with cheaper cards. Working Grasshopper, we ran at 1 copy. This is just an extra copy of the Roach. You can use the combo tree to draw Roach guaranteed because we only have 1 copy of him. I'd say it's 2 there, but I think they show you how many I have in my collection. I only have 1 copy in the deck because it can draw itself. And we have Selwyn here as a nice storm to chip damage before your big Rhinoceros finish. You can just replace these cards that aren't super standard with copies of Olivia as well as Arya as you pull them, or if you craft them, or if you want to improve this deck. Now the caveats I mentioned are important. The major downside to this deck is that it's very difficult to play. Look, you just do have to practice a bit and maybe look at some guides, and some better players will help you out. I think I'm okay, but like not super good at this deck. I definitely haven't played it much enough to become an expert, but even at my level I can still make it to diamond, so I would say this deck is pretty strong even in this current state, and it can only get better as you replace the more goofy cards with more solid cards like Olivia and Arya. So yeah, this is why I would recommend this deck. Plus the treasure chest event forces you to play a lot of games anyway, so you can take this chance to become an expert on this deck. I think that this deck will have longevity because Roach is so strong. It's probably the strongest finisher in the game right now. Like, I mean, other cards have more impact, but in terms of raw damage output, I think Roach has the highest burst damage. So yeah, anyway, let's look at some games we're playing for today. Our first game here is against Rune, and we are going second. For Rune, I prefer to go for an aggressive game plan, so I keep sheep followers and bail and just like sort of pray that I draw the Roach. Sometimes you don't draw the Roach and then you have to go a long game, but against Rune that's not super... well, it's pretty doable because Rune doesn't have that much burst damage, but you will have to start focusing on clearing that burst early on, so yeah, I prefer to just go for an early game plan, just kill them before they can get to play cool on. So go ahead and hit them with the fairy here and just clear their Miss Miranda so that they can't answer my followers. We'll go ahead and drop the fairy tamer here. We don't play the fairy out even though it's 1 more damage chip, because I'm looking to pair it with Fey Twinkle Toes next turn. As you can see, I don't have the 1-cost card in my hand yet, so well, now I do, but I didn't see it before, so I thought I would save the fairy to guarantee activate Fey Twinkle Toes. We could have used the extra play point to play like a Carbuncle or something, but I'd rather save the Carbuncle for my lethal turn with Roach, so You do go ahead and just use the Fating Lotus, and then we Evo Face. For this deck, as much as you can, you want to convert your Evo points into face damage because that is how this deck wins. Your lethal range is quite high in this deck, so you want to take advantage of that by chipping your opponent down so you can quickly lethal them. So to that end, we are going to go ahead and play the second Fate Twinkle Toes here and clear their War and Evo Face. We see Roach in hand. You can sort of leave Angria alive because again, Rune doesn't have much burst damage. They can't even play cool on this turn. The best they can do is play another Angria, right? Look at how much damage I have in hand. Next time I'll have an extra play point to work with, so I will have 7 PP. So I can play Bale plus Fairy plus these two for a total of 1, 2, 3. So I hit Roach for 3 bounce and then play the second Roach for 5. That will be 8 damage, and then plus Carbuncle Super Evo is 1 more damage. So yeah, you can see that we actually have lethal from this point as long as they don't heal. If they heal, I guess I cry, but frankly, without any draw sources in my hand, I probably wasn't winning the long game anyway, so I figured that my best shot is just to go for lethal here, so that's it. You can see my opponent will clear my Fairy here, play they're looking smart, presumably they're looking for heal, but I guess they didn't find it, so go ahead and drop the Miss Miranda here, summon the Demonic Shikigami as well as the Flame Destroyer, Blaze Destroyer, sorry, and then just Evo to threaten me, but they are dead, so we are not very threatened at all. I'm gonna play the Fairy here, play the Bale as well, a Roach for 3 as we calculated earlier, and then we go ahead and play the Carbuncle, and then the second Roach will hit for 5, and we can super evolve the Carbuncle to get our play points back as well as chip 1 more damage for an exact lethal. So this gameplay I feel is the most consistent against Rune, so let's look at some other games. Our next game here is against Sword, and we are going going second, sorry. I can't go fair the pawn here. I probably should be looking for more card draw instead. It's very difficult to play the aggro game against Sword. You'll usually end up on the back foot and having to clear the board unless they break. So I feel like usually you want to look for draw sources so you can play the longer game. My opponent will use the Lance Trooper to clear my Fairy here, which is fine, I suppose. We do have some Bales in hand, so that's good. We just need to try and set up for a big lethal with the Roaches. I feel like Sword is a pretty bad matchup for this deck. That is my personal experience. Maybe I'm just not good enough at the matchup yet. I'll also point out that when I'm playing Sword, I usually find Forest to be a relatively manageable matchup compared to stuff like Artifact or Rune. So from both perspectives, I feel like Sword is the better matchup. So yeah. We go ahead and just clear their followers here just to not allow them to have a big buff turn with their Zirconia. For evolve the Mei here, we want to chip damage. Sword doesn't have much healing, so your ability to chip damage in the early game will be very, very valuable. We go ahead and use the Mei to clear the Zirconia here. We can hold on to these fairies for trading into their followers. There's an argument for using fairies instead and saving the Mei for if they play the Luminous Magus here, but honestly if they play the Magus, we don't have enough 1 cost to activate the Mei anyway, so that wouldn't have been super great in its own way. I do pick up Godwood Staff so we can use that to draw, and we will trade in this for Fairy for a bit of card draw. Hopefully we can find a Glade. Glade is very strong in this matchup if we can find it, so that's what we're trying to do. Pick another Roach which isn't super valuable right now. We sort of need more hand cards to work with. As you can see, my opponent isn't super low either, so I don't want to worry about that. And my opponent will buff their board and just hit me. Presumably they're just trying to kill me. Pick another Godwood Staff, which is not great at this point in time. We'll go ahead and play a Roach and super evo it to hit them in the face. My logic here, I should probably explain, is that super evolving Royal Coach Woman will give them 11 damage, 10 damage, so I'm still alive, and if they have the buff card, I guess I lose. Honestly, my hand is too thin to play a game anyway, so I sort of have to just do this and hope they don't have lethal. As you can see, their hand is quite thin. And we can guarantee they'll have the Quick Blader because they are floating 1 play point, so if they had Quick Blader, they would have played it, so we know that that's the case. They don't have enough to play Centaur, so literally the only lethal cards they have is Zirconia, which they've already played one of, and Iron Crown Majesty, which they've also already played one of. So even though this looks very risky, I think there's a decent chance that I do just get away with this play. Oh, I should point out Olivia would also be lethal here if they had it, but I guess they didn't, so that's good. He'll go ahead and super evil and hit me in the face, which is a bit scary, I guess. Draw the Mei here, which is good because we can go ahead and bounce the Mei. This is a top deck lethal, by the way, I believe it is. You go ahead and play the Bell here. You can play the Mei as well. We have 2 roaches in hand, so we don't have to bounce the roaches, which is why we can do this. And then because of that, I believe we get exact lethal here. So that's 9 damage total, and we can super evo it for a nice lethal. So yeah, we have a lucky game, but this matchup is a bit rough, so I think it's fine. So my last match for today is going to be against Forest, and we are going first. I have a pretty low win rate in the mirror because probably I'm worse at playing this deck than most people that I'm running into. So yeah, anyway, we just want to play a tempo game. Lily is great because she takes 3 fairies for 1 body, so we can just go ahead and drop her. We don't need her clear anyway because Forest doesn't have any like massive boards that we need to answer. So just go ahead and play Lily for tempo here. We'll draw our Fairy Tamer to get some fairies, and then we will clear their Tamer so that we can keep our followers on board while we continue to punch them in the face. My opponent will spend their extra play point here to pick up the Fey Twinkle Toes, which is an option. And they will be able to clear my Lily as well as set out a bunch of followers on their own, but then we can just clear it with a bunch of Rush Fairies from our side, so not a big deal. We go ahead and trade the good fairy of the pawn in for a fairy at some point by dropping it here early on. Obviously you don't want to play fairies unless you need the rush, or you need the 1 cost but you don't have a better alternative. It's better to get the good fairy of the pawn out of your hand as soon as possible so you can trade it for a fairy, because fairies are much more useful for your lethal turns. And here we're just trying to deal more damage, so we do go ahead and evolve the good fairy of the pond. And then we'll play Glade here, which will be able to clear my Glade as well as my good fairy of the pawn. We are just trying to find our Roach here at this point. Pick out Working Grasshopper, which is basically a Roach, so that is nice. I should mention here there are 2 major use cases for Working Grasshopper. The main one is of course drawing your Roach. When you are losing it to search Roach, you have to play it as the 3rd card and nothing else because it draws exactly an X-cost follower. So if you play as your 4th card, you will draw a 4 cost, but you don't have a 4 cost, so you will draw nothing. And then if you play later than that, you'll draw stuff like Glade or whatever, which you don't necessarily want to draw in the late game that much. So yeah, make sure you play as the 3rd card. Alternatively, if you already have Roaches in hand and you need something else, you can play it as the 1st card to draw a Fairy of the Pawn, or you can play as your 2nd card to find either Carbuncle, the Fairy Tamer, or the Twinkle Toes. Usually I like playing it at 1 if I don't need it at 3, because having more 1-cost cards is always good for you. We will go ahead and just line up some followers in case we need to play Glade. We can have space to draw. If we don't play Glade, we can just line up followers for them to answer, or they take chip damage and potentially die. So it's around this point that we should start being very concerned. Once Super Evo is available, you should start being very concerned about whether someone's going to die. At this point my opponent is low, so we should be checking if we have lethal next turn or this turn. I don't believe I have lethal this turn. You can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I don't believe there's lethal this turn. So setting up, what I should have done here that I didn't do is just calculate whether I had lethal next turn. We know that they played the Lambert Cairn, so they have one heal in hand, so we can treat their effective health as 14. I want to see if we have lethal for that, and the easiest way to do that is to work backwards, I feel. So we can calculate how much damage we have in hand. Right now our main plan is probably going to be Carbuncle to bound Roach next turn, which means that Carbuncle can get us 1 damage, which puts them at 13. So the quirk about, I guess, the Roach Carbuncle lethal is that the 2nd Roach will have 2 more attack than the 1st Roach, so you can calculate along those lines to see if you have lethal here. In this case, when they are down to 13, the best we can do is a Roach for 6 and then a Roach for 8, which will be 14 damage for 5 play points. Next time we will have 3 bonus next to deducting the Roach lethal, I guess. Then we have 3 play points to work with, and we need to play 6. We need to play 5 cards in order to get Roach the 6 attack. So what we can look at is Bale for 1. Bale costs 0. There are 3 play points to play 2 more cards here. We can get the other Bale down as well by just trading fairy, so there's that. Next time you play Bale, Convocation, Fairy, then that will be enough cards to get a lethal. So what I should have done here is probably just save the Convocation and the Bales, and just probably play Glade or something. The only way they heal out of range if they play Olivia and then they play the 0 cost to heal up to 16, because we have a maximum of 15 damage in hand. So accounting for that, I probably should have just played Glade here, but instead I went and spent a bunch of fairies that I should have been saving. So that was a misplay on my part, so I just wanted to point that out, because I think it's important to plan ahead when playing this deck at a high level. Of course, if they play Olivia plus the 0 cost spell, then they will be very far from their own lethal, so I probably could just waste a turn before finishing it off next turn. Unfortunately here we don't quite have lethal because we are missing a 1 cost card. Thankfully though, we do pick up Lambent Cairn, which is gonna give us lethal, so we do just get out of it by top deck, but we did misplay there, so I thought it was important to just note that there was a misplay involved. Go ahead and play the Cairn here, play the Fairy, use the Bounty to heal, and then we can go ahead and play the Roach, hit face, and then we can bounce the Carbuncle, and my opponent knows they're dead, so they will just concede here. After the Super Evil, of course. Those are all the games I have for you today. Hopefully he gave you some idea of how this deck works and how it's played. Definitely far from optimal play from me, but if you thought this deck looked interesting or fun, I do recommend you try it out and pick it up. If you're okay with the steep learning curve, of course, you do have to play quite well to win with this deck, so you have to be careful of that. But yeah, once you play, it's a pretty rewarding deck to invest your time into, I think, because it's one of my opinion is that at full power, this deck is one of the strongest in the meta right now. So being able to master it by just spending time playing for it while you're grinding for chests is pretty decent, I think. So yeah, if you are interested in this deck, I would recommend it. And if you're not interested in this deck, I don't know, play budget artifact or something. Anyway, that's it for today. See you next time. Bye bye.